All right, let's bring in the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, member of Congress, Ohio. Good to see you, sir.
You too, Chris. Good to be with you.
I have a question, but first I have a complaint. Am I wrong to complain that Congress has been too quiet? That, the president would be greatly helped if Congress would pass rule changes that the people who are protecting us on the border sorely want and need. You know what they are. And even with the tariff stuff, the power that the president has comes from Congress. Shouldn't this be stuff that's on the table that you guys are in the mix about? Why does he have to go it alone on everything?
Well, because we got to get things clear through the Senate with a 60-vote hurdle on most things. I will tell you this, the Judiciary Committee's been working. We passed legislation on these judges who think they're the President of the United States who issue these injunctions which apply nationwide. We passed a bill that said that if a judge issues an injunction, it should apply to the parties in the case in that respective jurisdiction. It shouldn't have nationwide implications. So we've passed that through our committee, through the full House. It's now in the Senate. We marked up our portion of the reconciliation bill last week in House Judiciary Committee. We have jurisdiction over immigration. We allocated $81 billion in resources over the next several years to make sure the border, which is now secure, stays secure. So with 10,000 new ICE agents, 100,000 new beds for detention space, and when you have people that you need to hold instead of just release into the country like Joe Biden did, we've passed the Lake and Riley Act, and I could keep going. So I know what we've done in the Judiciary Committee. We're doing what we told the American people we were going to do, what the voters elected us to do.
The rule changes matter the most, though, in terms of immigration going forward. Resources are important. That's definitely on the short list. But it's the description of what asylum is, who gets to process it, what the due process is that's necessary. The courts have made it clear. You guys have to act on that.
Well, good point, and we did that last Congress. If you remember H.R. 2, one of the first bills we passed, and then it went to the Senate and sat there, and then they put together a bill that said, oh, keep letting people come in the country just a little smaller amount each day than what you were doing before, which was just a ridiculous piece of legislation. So we're willing to go back to H.R. 2 and pass that once we get reconciliation done, and we plan to do that. So, yeah, we're going to continue to do the hard work we've been doing in the Judiciary Committee and address that situation.
It's going to take a long time. Do you think, you're not in the Senate, not yet anyway, do you think that the Republicans should try to find a way to get rid of the filibuster?
Well, I think the Democrats, I actually like the check we have, in a general sense, because I know what they would have done. They would have packed the court. They would have done all kinds of things that I think were scary, make, Puerto Rico and a state, D.C. a state, add 2 new senators, Democrat senators from each of those jurisdictions to the United States Senate. So I know what they were going to do if they could do it. They will probably do it if they ever get back in control. So I think maybe we should have you could possibly have a vote to see where you say, okay, let's make permanent this idea. Start a constitutional process where you can't do it so that it's always protected. You can maybe do that and see what the vote is. And if the Democrats won't vote for that, then maybe we have to. There's a proposal to that effect been put out there by Congressman Fitzpatrick and some others. But I think overall it's probably good to have it because I know what they were going to do when they had control of government, and it was pretty frightening stuff.
They say the same thing about you guys. The Puerto Rico being a state scares you. Canada being a state doesn't?
You were the one in your monologue. You're the one in your monologue that talked about how crazy the left has become, which now, of course, controls the Democrat Party. They're proposing all kinds of crazy things. We're just the party of common sense, and we'd like to protect that common sense and not have a simple majority in the Senate do all the crazy things. So that's my concern.
I get the arguments on both sides of the filibuster. I would argue, I don't like the political parties. I believe you're both controlled by the fringes too much. And we've lost touch with the majority. And once in a while, one of you gets close enough where the people give you their hope and their aspiration again, and we'll see how you deliver on it. So when we get going with the budget negotiation, which is another surprise for me, I thought it was going to be more intense a lot sooner than this. What do you make of whether or not the president is going to get what he wants, which is leave Medicaid alone, leave Social Security alone, leave Medicare alone, and find the spending cuts elsewhere? Do you think he'll get what he wants?
I do. I think in the end we get this done because one of the fundamental principles of Republicans is we don't believe in raising taxes on the folks we get the privilege of representing. We actually think you should let moms and dads and families across this great country, families we represent, let them keep their money to spend on their goals and dreams. And so if we don't get this done, taxes are going to go up at the end of the calendar year. We don't want that for our voters. That is just not good. So not good for them, not good for their family, not good for the economy. So I think in the end, we get it done. And the president's been clear, not going to cut Social Security, not going to do any kind of cuts to Medicare or Medicaid, but we are going to look at making sure there are some work requirements for able-bodied adults in Medicaid. And understand this, the proposal that passed the House, the budget resolution proposal for reconciliation that passed the House, all it said was over 10 years, there will be a 2% reduction in the rate of growth. Most Americans would say, that's it? That's all you're cutting in, and that's not even talking about the programs you mentioned, because we're not going to cut those. That's talking cuts in general. They're not really cuts, they're reductions in the rate of growth, 2% over 10 years. Most Americans would say, are you kidding me? Family, we've had to do that before in our family budget, our small business, whatever. So most Americans would think that's pretty weak. That's what the big fight, and Democrats are saying, oh, the world's going to end if you do that. That's ridiculous. It's just completely false. Medicaid's going to grow every single year. It's just not going to go quite as fast because we're going to make some common sense changes that do a couple of things. Recognize the debt problem we have, recognize the deficit problem we have, and recognize that Medicaid was initially put forward as a program to help the disabled. We want to make sure we protect them.
Then why don't you cut from the defense budget, which is the largest discretionary spending thing we have, instead of adding to it? Especially when Johnson is saying that he won't go with the block grants for the states because, you know, a lot of the red states didn't do Medicaid expansion, and they have lower rates of people being insured, more vulnerable people as a result. So if you're not going to do that, why give more money to the military? Why not cut there?
Well, Chris, I'm willing to look at everything. We spend like $6 to $7 trillion every stinking year.
Yeah, but a lot of it is on the entitlements. On the discretionary side, the big pig at the trough is the DOD.
Well, that's what I meant. I'm willing to look at everything on the discretionary side. Those entitlements, Social Security is your money. You paid into it. That's your money. We're not going to, we shouldn't cut that. But on the discretionary side, look at all that. The overall, and there's some things on the mandatory side you can look at, like Medicaid, like we're talking about, but I'm looking at the discretionary too. We should consider all that. We want to make sure we have the strongest military in the world, and one of the great things President Trump has accomplished is military recruitment is now off the charts because they like this commander-in-chief versus what they had before. They're willing to sign up, put the uniform on, and protect our country. So we want to make sure we have the resources there in our military to deal with the situation around the world. But I'm willing to look there too because everyone knows there's probably waste in our Pentagon budget as well.
A single check.
So let's look at it all.
Yeah. All right, Jim Jordan. I love the candor.
I hope we get the rescissions package from the White House as soon as possible, which will rescind some of these things that DOJ has highlighted and discovered.
I look forward to that process as well. When you get the numbers, please come on and make the case. I'd appreciate it.
We will.
Jim Jordan, be well. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.